Yo, what's going on? What's going on? Welcome to the live stream. This is Edward Williams, founder and creator of Health by Any Means Necessary. And wanted to jump on here real quick. So do me a favor, type 5 if you can see me, if you can hear me okay. I know my camera's a little blurry right now. Forgive me for that. But also let me know what y'all up to. Let me know where you're at. You're on lunch break, you're at work, you know, what's going on, what y'all up to. One of my supporters sent me a link about the metformin recall, and this is something, you know, practitioners, medical practitioners, we usually get emails about, you know, recalls that are coming out in advance. And I saw, you know, earlier, I think it was last week, I saw that there was a recall about metformin. So what I want to do is I want to, you know, quickly talk about this recall, because I got patients to go see. I want to quickly talk about this recall. But I'm not going to spend much time talking about the recall itself, because this is just another aspect of moving the goalposts, and I'll explain that. But I want to make sure we have a deeper conversation. I want to elevate the conversation around metformin and around type 2 diabetes. So for those who don't know, metformin is a anti-diabetic medication. Metformin is also called glucophage. So it's called glucophage because anytime you see the word phage, P-H-A-G-E, usually that means to eat, okay? And so pretty much what the medication is claiming to eat glucose. So metformin is a medication that is historically the first line of medications that are prescribed to people who are type 2 diabetics. Now, within the past, I would say about 5 to 10 years, it has been common for people to prescribe metformin to people who are just pre-diabetic. And these people are sold this line, this game, and yes, I call it a game, but they're sold this game, you're not diabetic, you're pre-diabetic, so what we want you to do is start taking this medication so that you don't become diabetic. And what happens? They still become diabetic. The medication does nothing as far as preventing diabetes to occur. The only lifestyle is the only thing. Diet, nutrition, fitness, these are the only things that actually prevent and reverse diabetes. But like I said, in the past 5 to 10 years, metformin has become something that's recommended for people who are pre-diabetic as well as diabetic. Now let's briefly do a what they call an MOA, mechanism of action, as far as how metformin works. So metformin mainly works in 3 different ways, okay? First, metformin slows down the absorption of glucose or carbs that come in your body. So the carbs can be broken down to glucose. And what metformin does is it slows down the gastrointestinal motility and the absorption of the glucose. And this is why a lot of times people who take metformin, you're told not to take it on an empty stomach. And most people will not take it on an empty stomach. If they take it on an empty stomach once, they most likely won't do it again, because metformin is known to cause horrible stomach pain. As well, metformin has also been shown to cause a lot of diarrhea as well too, because we're talking about slowing down the absorption of glucose. And so the first way metformin works is by slowing down the actual acceptance of the sugar, the glucose, the carbohydrates that you're taking in the body. So the thought is, if you can eat carbohydrates, and metformin will slow down how much. Let me stop saying carbohydrates. You can eat the food that's going to increase your glucose, and metformin will decrease how much you actually absorb. So that's the first way. The next way that metformin works is by slowing down what they call gluconeogenesis from the liver. So the liver has the paddle cells. Those are the cells of the liver that liver is holding on to glucose, readily available glucose. It's also holding on to stored glucose in the form of something called glycogen. Glycogen is just a complex form of glucose. So glucose and glycogen is the same thing, except glycogen is actually stored for later use. In the time when your body needs more glucose, because it's already decreased the amount of glucose that's in the bloodstream, the liver will intelligently release that glucose that it has stored up into your bloodstream. And this is something that's supposed to happen. It's supposed to take place. And so what metformin does, metformin actually inhibits that release called gluconeogenesis. And so this is the second way that metformin works, is by slowing down or by inhibiting the liver's ability to do what it's supposed to do, which is release glucose. And so now what you have is you're forcing the liver to hold on to glucose even when the body is telling it to release glucose. This causes other problems. We will get to that as well. And then the third way that metformin works is by increasing insulin sensitivity. So, metformin pretty much forces the cells. So metformin pretty much tricks the cells. So we have trillions of cells. Those cells normally are going to be taking in glucose for energy, fuel, for it to run, for it to do its metabolic processes. But when the cells are at full capacity, they downregulate their insulin receptors, their GLUT receptors. The GLUT4 is the main receptor we're talking about. So it downregulates that receptor, and that way the insulin is not able to get into the receptor. Insulin is going to tell the cell usually allow more glucose in, but the cell is going to downregulate the insulin receptors, which is going to downregulate the GLUT4 receptors, which will hold off the glucose because the cells are at full capacity. Well, what metformin does is metformin tricks your cells, your trillions of cells. It tricks your trillions of cells into thinking that they're starving. It does this by activating a pathway called the AMP kinase. The AMP kinase is a monitoring system for your cells, for each of your cells, when it's in the midst of starvation. And so pretty much metformin is telling your cells, even though you were at full capacity with glucose, guess what? We're starving. And your cells will now take action as if it's starving. And so what metformin is going to do is going to force those cells to turn that glucose that's already in the cell. It's going to force it to turn into acid, which over time creates a lactic acid buildup. And I've made the case in my book. I have a new book coming out. It's called Done with Diabetes. In that book, I also make the case that many of these complications, so-called complications and side effects that we see with diabetes, we think that it's merely from type 2 diabetes. But I'm making the case that the medications are doing more harm than good. Every single one of them. The lesser of the evils would be metformin. Yes, I will say the lesser of the evils would be metformin, but I still have problems with metformin ultimately, and I'll get to that as well too. And so this is essentially how metformin works. Metformin is working in three ways. Like I said, it's slowing down the glucose absorption. It's inhibiting the release of glucose from the actual liver. And it is tricking your cells into thinking that it's starving. It's making your cells accept glucose even when it doesn't need to accept glucose. So there has been a recall released on metformin. I think it came out last week sometime, and the recall is being done in another country. The concerns are the same concerns that they have with the other blood pressure medications, right? Go figure. And the concerns is that there is a high amount or an elevated amount of what they call NDMA. And essentially this is a carcinogen. Now, the reason why I don't want us to get too tied into their conversation, because that's their conversation. I highly recommend we leave them to their conversations, because what's going to happen is what has always historically happened. And that is, they're going to move the goalpost, and whatever the final outcome is going to work in their favor. When I'm talking about their favor, I'm talking about the food, the drug, the food, FDA, pharmaceutical companies, the medical industry in general is always going to work out in their favor. Because let's say the recall right now, you may have another news article come out saying that, okay, yes, the recall is happening, but it's happening in other countries. The batch that's here in the United States, they're going to say that, don't worry about it. This batch is good. Keep on taking the medications. And so that'll calm people down, right? And they'll keep on going about their lives, taking the medication, not really thinking anything of it. Or the goalpost being moved is going to be something like, okay, yes, we found that there is a high amount, there is NDMA in the actual medications, but the amounts are not detrimental. The amounts that we see in the medications are the same amounts that we see in contaminated water. It's going to be the same amounts that we see in other natural foods. So they're going to make the equivalent of that amount found in the medications is also found everywhere else, therefore it's no difference. They're going to make that argument as well too. Or they're going to make the argument that, okay, metformin for now, hold off on it, so let's just evolve everybody to a different medication. And they'll probably make a recommendation for one of the worst medications, or one of the worst class of medications, which is the sulfonylureas. These are your glimepirides, your glipizide. These are the medications that specifically force the force the pancreas to secrete insulin. And so that's even worse. Or they might start evolving people to take insulin. What I'm saying is, no matter what conclusion they come to, it's going to work to their benefit. It's going to work because, and I'm not saying this based off of emotions. I'm saying this based off of history, historical facts. Looking back through the FDA and many of these pharmaceutical companies, if we push emotions aside and we just look at it with a clear lens, we just look at it from a very logical standpoint, you come to the conclusion that these people do not have your best interest in hand when it comes to your health. They value profit over the actual health of the people. This is not just me saying this. I can show you time after time after time after time where they let somebody like a GSX, GlaxoSmithKline, constantly put out medications after they have fined these people billions of dollars and let them play again in the game of medications. So you have companies who are putting out medications that they already knew in advance, such as Avandia. They already knew in advance that these medications actually increase heart attacks. They already knew in advance that these medications actually increase heart attacks, strokes. But they cover those things up and put it on the market. The FDA will pass it, they'll put it on the market, they'll make a couple billion dollars, and then in a year or 2, 3 years, people will start to have concerns about it, and then they'll say, oh, okay, oops, my bad, let's put a black box label warning on it. We didn't know. And then after 5, 7 years, after, you got to get a substantial amount of deaths before they start to pull it off the market. And then they'll pull it off the market saying that, oops, we didn't know. Then you find out they knew. They always knew. Not only did the company knew, the FDA already knew as well too. So the idea that we can sit back and trust these people who party together, they get on yachts together, they go to the same golf club, like the idea that we can continuously trust these people, these systems that have historically shown you that we don't really like you like that. Like, we value profit over everything else. Money over MO. Y'all already know what it's like. Y'all already know what the saying, right? You hear about it in the streets, MOB and everything like that. This is it on a real level. Everything else you've seen is small time. Like, that's nothing. That's little. And so what I'm saying is, let's pull ourselves out of that conversation. Let them deal with that conversation. My question to you, the community, the people, is why are you taking metformin in the first place? Why are you taking metformin in the first place? The answer is going to be because you're a type 2 diabetic, or you've been recommended to take it because you are pre-diabetic. Okay, cool. How does metformin work? Now, and it's not your fault. Most people have no idea how metformin works, and that's a problem. But I will let you know also that it's not your fault, because before I write any medication, you're going to know how it works. That's why I write very little medications. But you're going to know how it works. Like, you're going to know the pros, you're going to know the cons, if there are any pros. You're going to know how the medication works. So most people are taking these medications. They don't know how it works. They're giving a very superficial explanation of why they're taking the medication. I just broke down to you in less than, I've been on here for 13 minutes. I just broke down to you in less than 13 minutes how metformin works. It works in 3 ways. It slows down the absorption of the glucose that you're taking in, the carbs that you're taking in, the food that you're taking in. It's going to slow down the release of glucose from your liver, and it's going to trick your cells into thinking that it's starving. So essentially, if you look at it, and if you understand what fasting is, metformin is a poor excuse for fasting. Metformin is mimicking fasting. Somebody has got you, has tricked you into paying for fasting. Fasting is completely free. You can do it at any single time. It's the most flexible, affordable thing you can do that is extremely helpful and beneficial for you as a human in general, but also when it comes to type 2 diabetes. Metformin mimics fasting. So once again, let's go through how metformin works. 1, slows down the absorption of glucose, of the food that you're eating. I told you that causes gastric issues. People who take that medication without eating anything, they won't do it again. They probably do it once, they won't do it again because the side effects are so harsh. Diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, all those things. So if metformin's first mechanism of action is by slowing down how much you're actually absorbing, what does fasting do? What can fasting do that's similar to that without the side effects? Well, fasting, you're not eating. You're not eating anything. There's nothing to slow down. You're not actually eating anything. You are giving your GI system a complete break. You're giving a reset because your body needs a break. All your systems, it needs a break. How would you feel if you had to work 20, well, let's say 18 hours a day, and then as soon as you get right back up, and then the hours that you're working, the work environment is the worst because the food is the worst, and there's no days off. You're working 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, over and over. There's no vacations, there's no holidays, there's nothing in sight. And like I said, the work conditions, i.e. the food, is the worst. So your GI system needs a break. So when it comes to fasting versus metformin, as far as slowing down the absorption of the glucose or the carbohydrates or the food that's entering your body, fasting wins because you don't take anything in. You give your body a complete break. Next, as far as inhibiting gluconeogenesis, your body is releasing glucose on purpose. It's doing that on purpose. It's an intelligent response because in the time of need, so many people think that they have to eat every 2 to 3 hours because if they don't, they're gonna get lightheaded and feel like they're gonna faint. And I get it. Your body is not adjusted to fasting. But what I'm saying is that if you're taking metformin, your body's even further away from being adjusted to fasting because when you're taking that medication, you are forcing your liver to hold on to that glucose. The liver is naturally supposed to release that glucose into your bloodstream in those times. And so when you feel that lightheadedness and you've gone for several hours without food, one, your body's not used to it. It does take some time to get back into its natural state. And two, you're taking this medication that is inhibiting your body to do what it's supposed to do. Not only that, you taking a medication that's forcing your liver to hold on to the glucose. Well, how long is the liver going to hold on to this glucose? Is there ain't going to be any problem? Okay, yeah, the glucose is going to get turned into glycogen. What's after that? What comes after you taking this medication that's forcing it to turn that glucose into glycogen? Eventually, it's going to get turned into fat, and that fat is supposed to be shipped out to your adipocytes, your fat cells. But guess what? If you're eating frequently and you're taking a medication thinking that you're actually improving your health, which you're not, and you continuously do this, and you're taking the recommendations of many of the practitioners and many of the nutritionists in general, and you're eating 6 small meals a day, you're eating every 2 to 3 hours, that fat that your liver is supposed to ship out to the fat cells is going to begin to be stored inside the actual liver, but not only the liver, stored inside of the pancreas. These are 2 organs where fat does not belong. Fat doesn't belong in an organ because fat is an organ. Fat belongs inside the adipocytes. And so when you're doing this for years and years and years and years and years, because that's what most people do because these medications seem like they're working, your blood work seems to look better, your finger stick seems to look better, but the complications, the mortality and morbidity remains the same, and in some medications instance it's even worse. And so fasting, when it comes to inhibiting your liver to release glucose, all right, as far as who wins that one, metformin wins that one because fasting is intelligent enough to understand that it's supposed to release it. It's supposed to release glucose. Fasting is intelligent enough to understand that your body's intelligent enough to release that glucose from the liver in the times of need. This way it's impossible to have fatty liver when you're fasting. You know why? Because fasting forces that liver to release that glucose. Metformin and these other medications forces that liver to hold on to that glucose, being converted to glycogen, ultimately being converted into fat, which is supposed to be shipped out to your fat cells, but it won't. It's going to get shipped. It's going to get stored into your liver. It's going to get stored into your pancreas, and then some is going to go into the fat cells. So as far as overall, who's going to win that one? It's going to be fasting. Fasting is going to win all of it. Spoiler alert: fasting is my #1 recommendation for diabetics and people just in general. Next, as far as the third mechanism of action with metformin, metformin Like I said, it's supposed to increase insulin sensitivity, but it doesn't. What it does is it tricks the cell into believing that it's starving by activating the starvation response, which is the AMP kinase. Fasting will activate that. The metformin will activate that, which is going to make the cell take in more glucose than it actually needs, and it's going to force the cell to convert the rest of that glucose to acid. And this is why lactic acidosis is also a complication of taking these metformin, the medication. So what does fasting do in that one? Who's going to win that situation? What's going on, brother? Who's going to win that situation? Once again, fasting. Why? Because there's two ways you deal with glucose in the cell. One, you allow it to run out by just living your life, moving around. Doing exercise is a great way to utilize the glucose that's in your cells. Two, just don't take any in. Give your body a break. Don't take any in. If you're not taking anything in, there's nothing to put in there. Trust me, most of us have more than enough glucose and glycogen in our body, in our liver specifically, to last for multiple days. I'm not telling y'all to go fast for 10 days right now. 16 hours, 1 meal a day, we can start there. So while metformin is doing all this tricking the cells, and you're thinking that that's not going to catch up with you eventually, I make the argument that it will. And so fasting actually makes your cells more insulin sensitive by decreasing the amount of insulin that's present in your bloodstream. We have to understand that we are insulin resistant because the cells are filled with glucose, but also because there's a constant presence of glucose in insulin. Insulin is a hormone. We have receptors. These hormones are supposed to be secreted in bursts. There's not supposed to be a constant supply of this hormone. They're supposed to be in bursts, and then they're gone for a while. And so when you have that constant supply, the receptors become desensitized. Just like when we look at other medications, antibiotics, everybody, the medical industry, they understand antibiotic resistance very well, right? They understand antibiotic resistance very well as far as, you're taking too much medication or one medication, we got to up the ante. Well, they took this ideology and they switched it. And so now as far as upping the ante, they up the medications. Now as far as upping the ante, they up the insulin injection. And let me say something about insulin real quick. I know this is a talk about metformin, and that pretty much concludes metformin versus fasting. So let me do this. So the problem with type 2 diabetes is, one, it's not a disease. It's not a disease. I know that sounds foreign and strange. That's why I wrote a whole entire book on it. The actual link is in the description. It is an adaptive physiological process. It's your body protecting itself. Insulin resistance is the actual foundation for what they call type 2 diabetes. Your body has become, your cells have become resistant to insulin on purpose. That is a intelligent design. It's doing that on purpose. Why? Because the cells are at full capacity with glucose. And us trying to stuff it in there with more medications is causing a problem. So if I'm telling you that insulin resistance is taking place because of the constant presence of glucose and insulin, because of the constant influx of food, the worst foods, why do we as a medical system and people in general think that injecting insulin is the answer? Insulin, overproduction of insulin is the problem. It's not the problem, but it causes a problem. The foods are the problem. The advice and the recommendations are the problem. This thinking that we get from Western medicine is the problem. Like, that is the actual disease thinking. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the root. The aceli of this whole entire thing is coming from the Western philosophy that we have now ingested and internalized, and we now walk around saying that it runs in my family. It don't run in your family. The horrible advice that's being passed down from the medical system that we're passing around in our families is the problem. And so insulin, if the constant presence of insulin is a problem, why would injecting more insulin be the solution? The insulin receptors are desensitized because there's always a presence of insulin. Why would injecting more insulin cause a solution? When we ask the question of why is it so important that we decrease the glucose in our bloodstream, the answer is we have multiple answers, right? The main one is going to be because of AGE. advanced glycation end products. This is where the actual glucose is so high that it starts to stick to the actual proteins in our body. It starts to stick to what they would call the framework of the arteries. It causes endothelium dysfunction. And so we understand that that damage is happening in the actual bloodstream, right? Well, riddle me this, Batman. When we take medications that magically make the glucose go down, where is this glucose going at? Where is it going at? If we're taking it out of the bloodstream, where does it go? It goes into the cells. Now we got to ask the question, if the high glucose outside in the bloodstream causes a problem, if it wreaks havoc, what does it do to the cell that was already trying to keep it out? What type of issues will it cause for this cell? And this is what we're talking about. And so when we see the complications such as the blindness, when we see the complications such as the kidney failure, when we see the complications such as the heart attacks, the stroke, when we see all these complications and we're just thinking that it's complications of type 2 diabetes, or we're thinking it's complications of just being black in America, and we're thinking it's complications of just the progression of the disease, I say we should hold off on those assumptions. Because when I look at how high insulin levels work, hyperinsulinemia, when I look at how it causes problems and it causes stiffening of the arteries, and I see how these medications are forcing the pancreas to secrete more insulin, even though the pancreas does not want to secrete it. And I see how this whole thing works. And when we look at the rates at people who take type 2 diabetic medications versus those who don't take it, and we look at the mortality and morbidity, one has to ask, shouldn't the rates of death and complications be lower in the group that's actually taking the medications? That's what you would think. You're taking the medication. Why do we think we're taking medications? Why are we taking medications? We are taking medications because ultimately we believe that this is somehow going to improve our health. Am I right or am I wrong? We're taking medications, but because we believe that this is going to keep us out the hospital. We believe that this is going to keep us away from the amputations, the dialysis clinics. We believe that this is going to decrease our blood sugar, our A1C. We believe that we are doing a good deed for our bodies, but when we look at the actual numbers, like I said, let's move emotions out the way. When we look at the actual numbers, the mortality and morbidity rates in those who are actually taking medications are similar, and in some cases it's even higher as far as the actual mortality and morbidity. Why don't we know this? And why is this not, like, this should be front page news? We should be trying to figure out, what are we taking medications for? Because it sounds like an expensive nothing burger. It sounds like an expensive nothing burger because you're not getting anything, you're not getting any results from it. You're not getting any health improvement. The only health improvement that you're getting is the fact that on paper it looks better. When you do a finger prick, the sugar looks better. When you do your A1C, it looks better. But what about the complications? What about the amputation, the gangrene, the heart attacks, the strokes? Those things remain the same. And so ultimately what I'm telling you, these medications don't work as far as mortality and morbidity. Where it matters, you know, we got a hashtag going on right now. It's called tangibles, right? When it comes to these medications and the treatment and all these protocols, when we're talking about chronic conditions, where are the tangible results as far as people living longer and healthier coming from the medications? You don't see it. Where you will see that is when we talk about lifestyle therapeutic improvement, the fasting, the nutrition. This is where you're going to see the answer at. But guess what? It's hard to make money off of fasting, man. It's hard to make billions off of fasting. So I want us to, metformin has a recall, all right. But as far as substance and elevating the conversation for my community, I need us to understand why we're even taking these medications in the first place. What is supposed to be the overall result of taking these medications, and are we actually getting the results? We're not. So if you want to get the benefits of metformin, if you want to get the organic real benefits, like you want to actually get to the OG, the original, which is metformin is trying to copy fasting, then just fast. Fast. I'm not talking about anything strenuous or crazy. Just start lightly. So one, I have made, y'all hold on real quick. Everything good?
We don't know, but you're not in there trying to save us. I know. We're going to be in there, burning it out, and you
Oh, I'm supposed to run in the burning building? Y'all better run out. Fire alarm's going off. I don't know. So when we're talking about, yes, okay, fasting. Yeah, I mean, I every patient, every client, everything that I come in contact with that has some type of medical condition, chronic condition, but specifically fasting, they all have been placed on some type of fasting regimen. All of them. Now, here's a couple recommendations that I make, and I make these in the book. So if you want more information on it, get the free book. The book is free. You just pay for the shipping. Get the free book. Trust me, you're not going to find anything else like it out there at all. So as far as the recommendations, yes, get into fasting. Educate yourself about fasting, the benefits of fasting. Also go through and watch my videos about what diabetes is. I have several videos all on my page through Facebook, as far as what diabetes is. 2, you have to be measuring your finger stick. If you're not tracking, you're guessing. And if you're guessing, then that pretty much means you're leaving your fate up, your health up to the medical system. And once again, I told you, based on historical facts, they don't like you like that. They never have. Okay? They value profit, revenue over your health. Your health, your grandma's health, your granddaddy's health, your mama, no, that comes somewhere else, but it's not first. The first thing is profit, revenue. So if it makes more money, trust me, they're going to go with it. So you have to make sure you are tracking your finger sticks, okay? You have to make sure you're tracking your finger sticks. Know where your levels are at. I recommend starting off with 3 times a day. First thing in the morning, fasting. The first meal you have in the day, also track it, and then track it 2 hours after you eat that meal. This is going to let you know how your body is responding to the food that you're eating. You should track this that aggressive for 3 times a day for at least 3 days. In my coaching program, I do it a little bit hard because we go hard. We're not playing around. You got to reverse it. So do that for the first 3 days. Then from there, once you now have a little line graph of what your blood sugar looks like, you're going to start to see key indicators as far as what is causing your blood sugar to go up and what's causing your blood sugar to go down, all those things. Next, you want to start to ease yourself into a fast. What do I mean by easing yourself into a fast? If your last meal, this is just an example, if your last meal is at 8 p.m. at night, do your best to only drink water. Don't drink any sodas, juice, whatever else. This is what I call liquid diabetes. I don't care what that bottle says. I don't care how much vitamin C they say they have it. I don't care how much energy. All that stuff is just marketing. These folks don't like you like that. I'll continue to say that. They don't like you like that. So as far as what you do after your last meal at 8 p.m., you're going to fast. You're going to drink water. You're going to fast. You're going to wake up in the morning, and guess what? Congratulations. If you wake up at 6 p.m., if you wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning, congratulations. You just did, 10 hours of fasting. Congratulations. Now, see how you feel. Check in with yourself. Check your blood sugar. See where your blood sugar is at. How much longer can you go without eating and just drinking water? How much longer can you go? Feel yourself out. Don't wake up in the morning and think that you have to eat. Don't wake up in the morning and think that you have to eat. Ask yourself, is that even natural to just eat just to eat? Is that natural? Where'd you get that out of there from? You got it from the same folks who have successfully hustled a nation. You got it from Kellogg's and Tony the Tiger and Nabisco and all them boys who make money off of getting you to eat multiple times a day. The recommendations right now in the medical industry is 2 to 3 hours you should be eating. 6 small meals you should be eating. You think in the midst of an obesity epidemic, you think we don't eat enough? You think we should be eating more? So ease yourself into a fast. If you wake up at 6, that means you just finished doing 10 hours of fasting. Congratulations, pat yourself on the back. Try to see how much longer you can go until you start to feel like you need to eat. And then you eat. But when you eat, you don't just eat anything. You make sure you break your fast with a green smoothie. Mostly greens. I'm talking 60 to 80% of leafy greens. You can put some blueberries in there, but you want to use water, okay? And then you're going to continue to do this. Continue to do this. continue measuring your blood sugar, continue doing this on a daily basis, and every single day you try to edge up that hour, the time that you're fasting. So if you broke your fast at 10:30, great. Next day, let's see if we can do 10:45. Then let's see if we can do 11 o'clock. It's levels to this thing. Ease your way into it. Now, the medical folks, they're going to tell you that fasting is horrible, fasting is the devil. Take this medication. This medication that we just created in the lab maybe a year or two ago. We don't really know how these medications are going to work with all the other medications we have. As far as resolution, when your blood sugar creeps back up, we're going to increase the medication. We're going to put you on another medication. They're not giving you any solutions. They're not giving you any answers. Like, they're giving you answers, but it's not solutions. So that's my recommendation. I wrote a whole entire book on it. The books will be shipped out Monday. Oh, crap. Monday. The books will begin to get shipped out Monday. There's also an audio version of the book. And it's a free book. All you're doing is paying for the shipping. All right. So let's be careful about the conversations that we get into, because not all conversations are meant for us. We're not needed. And a lot of times it hustles us backwards. It helps us hustle backwards. Okay. And this is one of those conversations where we need to get to the actual root of the problem. You know, don't let them sell you on a different brand of medication. Don't let them sell you on, you know, a different batch of medication, because what you're doing ultimately is you're putting sugar. You already know what I'm going to say. You're putting sugar on a sandwich that's filled with crap, right? Let's deal with the fact that that's a crap sandwich. Why are we dealing with a crap sandwich in the first place? Let's deal with that. Why are we diabetic in the first place? How did it get to be that way? And what can we do to actually reverse type 2 diabetes? And that's what's another thing you should know. Type 2 diabetes is reversible, okay? It is reversible. And in my book, I go through and I debunk these lies. I used to call them myths, but they're lies. I go through and debunk these lies about why it is not reversible. The whole idea that the pancreas is burned out, the whole idea that the cells are empty and starving. I go through, I debunk it, I put it in an intellectual headlock, and then we push it out the way and we move on. We go through and we chop down, because if this thing is really going to work, then you need to be convinced of the information. You need to be walking with conviction. All right. So that's it, y'all. I appreciate y'all for listening, and you know, please share the video. Share the video, because I know for a fact, based on depressing research and statistics, that we all know someone who is pre-diabetic and diabetic. I know it for a fact based on the numbers, and we got to change that. And we can't affect them. We can't expect them to change that for us, right? Like, we can't ask the hustlers to stop hustling us, because they're only going to hustle us more. So we can't go that route. Not only can we not go that route, we don't need to go that route. All we need. It's all on us. We have what it takes. You know how many compassionate black health coaches we have out there? Do you know how many people we have that have written books? And I know a lot of us don't know about them, because you know, they didn't have social media at the time and all those things. And so you know, we're working on certain things behind the scenes to kind of really bring the elders to front stage, to center stage, as far as their advice and recommendations. But ultimately, we all we need. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Please make sure you share this video. Please make sure you share this video. So Andre Williams said, what about seizures? Any meds or natural supplements for that? Andre Williams, if this is for an adult or a child, actually, seizures, you have to know the electrolytes, the levels. You have to know the electrolyte levels, and you also have to know where vitamin D levels are at as well. I don't know the details of your question and this person you're speaking about, but make sure you know the electrolyte levels, okay? So glad. What's going on, Elaine? Donna, what's going on? I agree, metformin is one of the worst medications. Lakeisha, what's going on, sis? Gella, what's going on, Gella? Appreciate you. Love you too. Appreciate you. Scotty, what's going on? Gwendolyn, no problem. You're welcome. Lakeisha says it's going to take us to save us, for sure. And that's how it's always been. Man, look, if y'all haven't checked out a project called 1619 Project by Nicole Hannah Jones, dope sister, and she created this project and she bodied it. It's not just her, it's a community, it's a group effort. When Lakeisha says it's going to take us to save us, that's the way it's always been. You know, going through this project and reading the documentation has really challenged me as far as on multiple levels. It's really challenged me. I'm not ready to really speak about it yet because I'm still going through it. I'm still digesting it. But that project, it's called the 1619 Project by a sister named Nicole Hannah Jones. She worked with the New York Times to publish this. You got to check it out. All right. So somebody says, always ask what's normal sugar levels. She always goes to another subject. Deborah, you have asked this question, and I think you told me that you want to know the Canadian levels. I don't know the Canadian levels, Deborah. But if you want to know the American levels, Deborah, one, if you're fasting, then your blood sugar should not be above 100, and that's their guidelines. That's the ADA guidelines as far as being above 100. I say I'm uncomfortable with 85. If you've been fasting for 8 to 12 hours and your fasting blood sugar is above 85, I already know there's a problem taking place. Okay, so and at any time during the day, no matter if you just finished eating or if you ate like 2 hours ago, your blood sugar should never go above 140. If it goes above 140, we know there's a pretty good chance we're looking at someone who has at least prediabetes. So Deborah, once again, that's my answer. As far as the Canadian levels, Deborah, you understand that those things convert. There's a different metric. I don't know the answer. I can only tell you the American version. But please, Deborah, just Google it, okay? Just Google what the Canadian standards are. All right? I appreciate you watching the video. Gela says, how do I get your book? All right, Gela, so the link is in the... what's going on, Gela? Appreciate you. The link is in the description. Just click on the link. It's going to take you to a page. And that page is going to ask for your information, and it will ship it out. Ship it out on December 16th, all right? You stop taking your metformin. Great stuff, bro. Watching from Barbados. Oh, that's what's up. Barbados in the house. That's what's up. Amethyst says, how do I get the book? Yep, so the link is in the description. Everybody that wants to know about the book, the link is in the description. And like I said, y'all, please share this video, because I know a lot of us is going to get tied into a conversation that really has nothing to do with us. And if we want to get, real results, real benefits, tangible results, then we have to get to a deeper level of question, the foundational question, the root question, which is, why are we taking this medication anyway, and why are we diabetic, and what do we need to do to actually get off diabetes, to reverse diabetes and not take any medication. All right, so that's my ultimate recommendation. All right, y'all, I appreciate it. Let me go finish seeing these patients, and I'm gonna holler at y'all later. All right, peace.